On today's show, we're going to be answering your design system questions, whatever they may be, from governance to token naming conventions to getting trolled by priests on YouTube. I'm Luke Murphy, a design advocate at Zeroheight, the design system management platform, and I'm joined by my extra special co-host today, Ms. Amy Hupe, or Hooper, as you just divulged.
I go Hupe, but the
Yeah.
Germans do Hooper.
Yeah. Amy is a design system consultant and general design system celebrity. And this is Design Systems WTF. Alrighty. Ask me anything sessions.
I didn't sign off on the word celebrity, and I absolutely don't endorse that.
I snuck it in there
Yeah, it
just
made me
because I
very
could.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, it's okay.
sweating into your jumper now.
To be fair, I don't think it actually makes you that uncomfortable. I
I know
think
it
for.
does. I
Really?
don't like, that I'm nothing if not humble. No, but I can make jokes about being big headed, but when someone else says something genuinely nice about me, it makes me want to be sick.
Oh, well, okay. I'll make sure that I say at least 10 more nice things over the next 20 minutes.
Oh,
Um, So usually we chat through a topic and then we hand it over to Q&A, but actually we're going to start with Q&A. And to prepare, because I didn't want to just jump into it and expect that everybody would be flooding the chat with questions, I did source some questions from around to internet. So from the lovely folks at Zero Height, as well as on Twitter and LinkedIn, because I refuse to call it X. And so the first question to kick this off, nice, easy one, nice, simple one to start with. This is from Margot. What do you see will be the biggest shifts or influences on design systems in 2024? Are there any exciting predictions for the world of design systems?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't feel like do you feel like you've got your finger on the pulse these days? I suppose that's kind of your job to have, isn't it?
Yeah, I kind of need to.
Need to. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I probably should, but haven't. My finger's been well off the pulse this whole year.
I'm curious because did you see, as somebody who has been in the trenches, shall we say, with
Mm.
design systems,
And indeed in general.
well, and indeed in general,
Yeah.
but somebody who's been in the trenches over the last, especially 18 months, have you seen a shift in the way that companies are sort of treating design systems, how design systems are being resourced, and all the rest of it? Because we've definitely seen it from like a higher up level.
I would say something that I've noticed happening since not necessarily just the last 18 months, but since when I think about when I first started working in this space to now, is that we have started to talk about design systems like they're this kind of single implementation type thing. Like this like what am I trying to say? That we don't think about design systems in context so much anymore.
Yeah.
We have to, and we end up doing that. But what I find now, I think Dan Moore talked about this at Converge last year. Companies used to approach him or consultants like him and say things like, oh, we need to try and make our design workflow more efficient, and we want to make our products more consistent, and we want to improve the quality of what we're doing, that sort of thing. And now we just say we need a design system. And what I see quite a lot of my work is kind of going to teams who've been told we need a design system, and then everyone kind of runs towards what they think a design system is, and everyone has slightly different ideas about that. So then a
Yeah.
lot of my job is trying to kind of walk people back from that, like almost like forget everything you think you know about design systems. Let's talk about what are your problems to solve here, and how are we going to do that, where are we going to start. Let's not just set out to start building out a library in Figma and a front end component library and a set of tokens and whatever. What else do you have? Oh, documentation websites. Need we forget? Lest we forget. God, sorry, it really is a very bad time of year for remembering words, isn't it?
I know.
So I think that the trend that I'm seeing, which is an unfortunate trend, is this move towards this kind of very formulaic approach to design systems. And I'm hoping what we're going to see in 2024 is more discussion about kind of nuance and variation and context specific applications of design systems. That's what I'd love to see.
I mean, that is interesting. Do you think that that's actually just a step in the maturity, though? Like, because we did have, if we were talking 3 years ago, it was actually more that you were going in and having to fight for a design system and explain what it was from like base level principles. Whereas now, at least, you do have this slightly more cookie cutter approach where it's like, well, we have these artifacts that we see as the design system. So let's do that. And the next stage is then getting into, okay, well, this is what we need from the design. Here's all the possible things that a design system can be, and here's what we need as our
No,
design system.
I think we're in a worse position now
Oh, interesting.
because we used to have to educate people from a baseline of nothing, from no idea,
Yeah.
and now we have to help people unlearn the wrong idea and then
Yeah.
re-educate them. So
Okay.
it feels
Interesting.
like it's more work now. Like there's probably like a handful of like pervasive myths that I
Yeah.
feel like I encounter over and over, like design systems are a thing you deliver and then stop funding. Like that's still a really persistent,
Yeah.
annoying thing that keeps happening. And I think that's one example of an idea that's kind of somehow infiltrated the minds of stakeholders that now has to be kind of unlearned and untaught. And that's annoying.
I can understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a little bit more optimistic than you are when it comes
In
to that stuff.
general, I'd
Yeah, I
say
mean in
that's
general.
true. But not today, actually. I'd say today, actually, I've brought the joy. I've brought the Christmas joy.
Yeah, I've been in too many meetings
You've
today.
been
That's
very
why.
stressed since I arrived.
Yeah, well, getting this whole setup, I'm used to sitting at my desk and it just working, but there is a whole complicated setup behind this camera.
There is like a
We've got a
good plan.
producer sitting in a chair just there, which is just unheard of. That makes us sound way more professional than we are. Um, yeah, I see. I think for me, my trend is, well, because I would say that actually over the last year we've seen more, like, less investment in design systems. Um,
I think we've seen less investment in tech in general over
well,
the
yeah,
last year,
exactly. Yeah.
in people working in tech.
Well, and I think what I've definitely seen is I've seen like there's even less investment on anything that doesn't directly impact like final product release.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
suspect all areas of kind of enablement
Yeah,
have
exactly.
been defunded significantly over the last year or so.
Um, I would like to say that I've seen that starting to tick back up in the last
Yeah, me
couple
too,
months,
actually.
which
And
is good.
not least because I've finally been hired again after a very long hiatus this year.
Which is good. That's
Yeah, it's great. Thank you
yay
so much
yay
to
for
the
Amy.
clients who have hired me. I really, really appreciate you, babes.
But I do think that we're going to start seeing. Basically, I feel like we stalled a little bit 12 months ago
Yeah.
with, because we do need to remember, and it's what along the same lines of what you were talking about. Like, these are the trials and tribulations of anything sort of coming to market and getting to the point where it is just inherent, like, known knowledge of what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You do have those ups and downs of people learning stuff or not knowing stuff but thinking they know stuff, and then kind of having to unlearn things. We are at that peak of inflated expectations with design systems.
I think so.
I mean, well, Gartner said it in their report this year. So it's like, and so I think that, we've still got another 2 to 5 years before we reach that lovely place where everybody knows stuff. I think 2 to 5 years is probably maybe like optimistic.
Well, I think what's really difficult is we talk about design systems maturity, and again, in this quite kind of singular way, and I've done it too, but actually, it's so varied.
Yeah.
Like across, like geographically, I think it's varied. Like when I talk to design system consultants like me who work in the US, they have a completely different picture of the kind of one that I have working in the UK most of the time.
Yeah.
And what I find is like what I hear from them quite a lot is like, oh my God, are we still talking about this? And I'm like, mate, in the UK, we've only just started. Like, and I think, and I actually think the UK is fairly mature, but sometimes, like, I've gone to other countries this year and talked about design systems there. And there's a real variation in understanding
Yeah.
across companies, across different regions, across, yeah. So I don't know if we're all at the same stage. I would
I
say there's a
don't think
good
we're all at the same
5-year
stage.
variation between where we're all at with design systems.
100%. And actually, like, it's one of the interesting things we've seen at zeroheight is we've seen massive growth from places like Nigeria, Brazil, Indonesia. In fact, we had, was it Indonesia or the Philippines, that we had we had finalists for the Design System Awards, which is
Oh,
great to see somebody not being from UK, US, France, Germany.
yeah.
Like, that is the standard, it seems.
Yeah.
Um,
Did they win one? They should have done.
they didn't. They did travel all the way out though,
Oh my goodness, they definitely should have won an
and
award for
then
that.
didn't win. But that's because the winners were decided beforehand, not from effort of how much effort you made to come to the ceremony. which I don't know. Maybe
No,
we should factor that in next
should
time.
factor that in
Yeah.
next time.
Um,
I should have won an award. I traveled quite a long way.
I mean, you got your own reserved seat. That's enough. So brilliant. On to the next question. There's an interesting one here that I'm not sure if you have opinions on, but Patrick in the chat is asking for our thoughts on Figma not being acquired by Adobe.
Brilliant news, I think. What do you think?
Do you think it's a good thing?
I think it is probably a good thing. Yeah. I don't know why. It's based on almost nothing. And also, I'm really sorry if anyone, I don't actually know how this has affected like people's jobs and things like that. So I don't
Mm,
want to say that. Like that would
yeah,
actually be my primary concern. Um, I do think it's probably a good thing. I don't think monopolies are ever a great thing. I
yeah.
think Figma has done best historically when it's been kind of left to do its thing in its own way.
See, I was a I was actually not that against Adobe acquiring Figma, purely because Adobe have a
Because
lot
you're a
of,
capitalist.
well, no, because Adobe have a lot of resource, and I think that Figma would do well with more resource as long as they were left to do their own things. Because we've
As
also
long, and
seen,
that's a big as
yeah,
long as, isn't it?
we've seen Adobe eat up companies in the past, and slightly screw them over. Things like, well, I don't know, I don't even know what I'd say. Flash and macro, what was the other one, director ended up as, I suppose, After Effects maybe, but things like Fireworks, which is like, was a loved product that everybody used to use and then just got thrown on the trash heap. And even things like XD, where it's like, I mean, I've never professed to love using XD, but the fact that they've basically just announced end of life for that last year, well, they might not now that they're not acquiring Figma, but it's one of those things where it's like, I know a lot of people used it, so I don't know, I think it was like a double, but at the same time it's like Adobe have what market valuation of 220 something $billion, right?
Too much money,
They've
really,
got a
isn't it?
lot of
Too
money.
much money for a software
A
company.
lot of money. And so the fact that they could have put some of that resource into Figma could have been a really good thing. However, at the same time, like the fact that, yeah, you're right, like monopoly is never a good thing. So actually having more competition is great. It also sets Figma up really nicely because they've got $1 billion out of
I
this.
know.
Which
Lucky
is,
Figma. Drinks on Figma tonight.
geez, I mean, not bad, not bad for
No.
not having a deal go through. And so I think that they're potentially set up now to potentially be in a position to acquire other companies as well,
Yeah.
which could be a good thing. They could be the next monolith. They could be the
Oh,
next design monolith.
Figma. Figma take over the world.
But I think I do think that having competition is good. Um, I don't know. I kind of liked the idea of Adobe becoming cool again.
Yeah. I don't
And
really have feelings about that.
now I don't know. I've used Adobe was a big part of my life. It has been a big part of my life since I was 16,
That's
15.
yeah, that's I'm very nostalgic for you, but I think like I don't have any feelings
Yeah, fair
about
play.
software companies. I do also think I don't want to see Figma becoming a monopoly either. Like I think this kind of ties into what I was saying before about design systems becoming kind of very like formulaic and repeatable. And I'm really torn with this because sometimes I
Mm,
think like it helps if we're expecting people to move fairly rapidly between organizations, the
yeah.
job market's quite fast moving. It helps for transferability if people are using similar setups and similar software. Then again, I really would like to see more context specific innovation happening in design systems. I'd like to see us moving in that direction rather than the direction we're moving in. And I do think Figma becoming the sole tool for everyone without question could contribute to that not happening.
So I
It's
have,
going to get very philosophical now, isn't it?
well, no, because like I have a bit of an issue with this in that, like, and I think that it's I don't know. I need to like I need to let these thoughts percolate. But standardization, right? Standardization is a good thing. Standardization can be a good thing.
Can be a good thing.
I actually no. To be fair, I think that standardization is generally a good thing. If you're talking about things like I don't know, even things like maybe actually, yeah. I'm now thinking we've never standardized anything that's at a principal level, right? We're usually standardizing tech things. So things like tokens should be standardized. Things like I I don't know. I do think there is maybe even a world where like design systems, a lot of the concepts within design systems can be standardized. What is so we're all talking the same language. like things like, what is a button, what is a card, what is a
Isn't this just HTML though?
well, it kind of is. The problem is at the base level, it can be covered off by things like HTML. But when you're talking about anything that gets more complex than maybe a button component, that's when you're talking about things where it's like, actually, maybe we could go to like that next level of standardization, even if it's just as a like you can deviate from it, but it's like this is the common understanding. And if you're going to deviate from it, you deviate from it knowing what the common understanding and the common rules are. Because you can almost like fall back on a level of heuristics is probably the wrong word, but it's like a level you can almost like cascade down your level of like principles to have a base shared understanding. So I think standardization is not necessarily a bad thing. And I think that if you're trying to do things that are too contextual, you can kind of ruin some of that because don't have that like affordance, and it makes it really hard to build things with it. It makes it really easy for people to build things with it when they're a team that has like grown with it. But if you think about like new people coming in,
Mm.
or when it's when it's like being picked up by new folks, or it's changing teams, or whatever happens as it evolves over like having that like level of um very specific domain knowledge, I think could be problematic. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm conflicted about this. I think like we would probably both agree that balance is healthy, right? You need enough room for customization and innovation and a sensible degree of standardization. And I think my position is that I see a little too much movement towards standardization before I think we're really ready for it. Like I think that that's my kind of concern, is that the
Yeah, no,
industry is
that's
still
fair.
maturing. I
Yeah.
see design system teams running into the same problems, making the same mistakes over and over again. Not even mistakes, running into the same problems over and over again. And sometimes I just think, oh, are we at a point of being ready to standardize as much as we're trying to
Oh,
right now?
see, but that is the interesting thing is it's like, will the standards help those teams not run into those problems over
I
and
don't
over
think they
again?
do. I think the
Yeah.
standards themselves create the problems a lot of the
Oh,
time because, as I kind of alluded to at the start of this, I think I see a lot of teams treating design systems like this kind of paint by numbers, race to the finish line exercise.
yeah.
We need to build a Figma library, a front end library. We need to build design tokens. We need the documentation website. We need all those things to talk to each other in this particular way. And lots of organizations don't need that. They're not at a stage of needing all those things. And I find that often they get really lost in pursuit of trying to deliver those things in this very formulaic way.
Yeah.
And they lose sight of trying to solve their own organization's problems. And that's what worries me about standardization, I think. Should we shut up now? What people saying in the chat? Oh, I want to do some of the off topic questions. Should we
I
do them?
Yeah, sure. I think that I actually think that this could be its own topic, so might invite you back.
Yeah,
Um
I could form some coherent thoughts about this if you'd like.
and then if you form those coherent thoughts, I can then steal them to do talks on them
I
later.
can't wait for
That sounds
that.
good.
Great. And then I'll troll you about it when I do talks.
Sounds perfect.
Shots fired all over the place.
I'd like to do Jerry's question here. So
Yeah.
if we made a set of design system top trumps, what would your highest score be in?
Uh,
Bullshitting.
pissing on bonfires. As evidenced by the big speech that I've just given now. I
Yeah.
honestly think that'd probably be it. That's what
Pissing
I
on
feel like I do.
bonfires.
Just
Yeah.
go into organizations and piss on bonfires. I go, you don't need that. You don't need that. You don't need that. You're doing that wrong. Don't bother with that.
Yeah.
Can I have some money, please? That is what I feel like I do nowadays. It's really makes me a bit sad. I'd like to be the one that gets people excited again, but I think realistically that's probably the answer.
Oh, I mean, to be fair, I think mine's not. I was going to say mine would be between like stakeholder management, which sounds very similar to pissing on bonfires. Um,
It's a more professional way
it's
of
the more
saying it.
professional way to
Yeah.
say it. My other one is probably building teams.
Yeah.
Fuck the like the in the weed. Oh, sorry, I accidentally swore there. It's okay. They can edit
Accidentally.
that out in post. Yeah, no, screw the like actually doing the work. I'm very much more of an ops person. I love the running of the design system as a, you know, product slash piece of infrastructure. And a large part of that is also building the team to do better than I ever could.
Yeah, I like doing both actually.
Yeah.
I like switching between the two. Like my ideal way of working is to do like one project where I'm working as like the lead or the manager and doing all the strategy stuff and
Yeah.
the all the delegating, sitting in my ivory tower, pissing on bonfires, telling people what to do. And then and then I like to go from that to like spending a bit of time maybe working on documentation writing and content design and the stuff that I like doing with design systems, because I find that sort of keeps me relatively safe from burnout,
Yeah,
which
I
is
think that's fair.
I think I'd be more burnt out if I didn't do that switching.
It is interesting because it's like I heard somebody talking about this because basically you're talking about switching from. I heard this analogy of how you build teams of captains, coaches, and players.
Yeah.
With the idea being that the captain is a leader who is in the weeds doing the like IC work and getting in there and basically acting as a mentor to other people to like and almost like showing by example of how you
Yeah.
do stuff. It's the most senior IC person. Then you got coaches who aren't in the IC work. They're very much around building the team, managing people, like pushing for probably a bit of stakeholder management, making sure that they can kind of like protect everybody. And then when people come to them, they will sort of give the advice and move on. And then you got the players who are the core ICs.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
And it sounds like you're basically saying that you like to go between that captain and coach role.
I think so.
Yeah.
Where does the pissing on bonfires happen?
I think both a little bit. And
Okay.
I think I really like that. And actually I think that it's a problem with a lot of design system teams is I think that they kind of don't have that combination of people, or quite
Yeah.
often actually they're just full of players.
Full of players. Yeah, indeed. As
Too
is the
many
tech
players.
industry.
Too many
Too many
players.
mans.
Yeah. Okay, let's get on to another question.
Go on.
So I'm going to pull one in here from that we got earlier, which is from Steve, which I think is a good one, because mostly because it mentions AI. What do you see as the opportunities and risks with using AI to generate your design system docs?
Oh, Steve, you scamp. Oh God. I don't see many opportunities, honestly,
What?
in the hands that it's in. I don't trust any of you. Okay.
Oh,
No,
okay, yeah,
listen,
whatever.
I think that this guy, I'm going to keep banging the drum about I don't like people standardizing on things. Okay. Lots of documentation that I see is neglected, is badly written, is not given the care and attention that it requires.
Yeah.
I feel very wary about people using ChatGPT to generate documentation where the source material is so inherently flawed. And my worry is that people won't write specific prompts, starting first by thinking about what information do we need to provide to our organization, given the level of knowledge that people have, the level of experience they have,
Yeah.
our kind of specific needs around this. They'll just go, write me the documentation for an icon set. And they'll get this super generic, probably like very verbose thing. And then we'll get people going, no one reads documentation.
I mean,
That was a subtweet to Louis Oriash, who is
I
now one of my very dearest friends. But yeah, I think
oh,
that that's what worries me. It's like we're not good enough at this stuff yet to collectively to start just churning out more of it. It's like Hayden's wheel of incestuous pugs. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm referring to?
yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else does, but that's
No, shall I
fine.
explain?
You go for it.
Okay, so Hayden Pickering, accessibility consultant, design systems person, front end design extraordinaire, I'd say, amazing person. If you don't know him, he makes these little videos called webbed briefs, and they're so much fun, aren't they? And he's made one about AI and large language models, and he likens it to a circle of uh, incestuous pugs
I mean,
mating.
yeah, it is. I do see the problem. I do see the problems, right?
Yeah.
I do see the problems, but
Chat
at the same,
GPT Defender comes to the fore.
well, I think that there are some massive opportunities here. Like, I do think one, I do think that when it comes down to it, documentation for design systems should not vary widely, like like wildly in terms of like there are affordances there. It's not like your button is going to behave different. I don't know why I keep picking on buttons.
We all do. It's
Yeah,
the
I know.
go-to, isn't it? It's right
It's the easy
there.
one.
Yeah.
But it's like it's not like your button is going to act dramatically different to the millions of other buttons out there on the internet, right? It's like, and actually, it's what I was actually what I was talking about with the standardization as well. It's like there is a base level of like affordance that needs to be baked into any kind of component in terms of like most of the time. So my suggestion is that actually, if you feed in enough good quality documentation, you should
Mm.
be able to generate. Now, yes, there are questions around like what that good quality is and what it isn't. Um, one of the other things that I think is pretty good, and it's not so much about like generating documentation, but is in making your documentation better. So we did like a little AI hack day thing a couple weeks ago, and one of the engineers created something where you could. I mean, it's very zero height specific, but actually, it's any documentation could build this, where you mark a bunch of pages as your guidelines. So you say these are our rules for the design system. Then
Mhm.
on any other page in your documentation, you can hit a button and it can check against those and against what other design system documentation sites. And it can come back with a bunch of suggestions of like, this is where this excels, this is where it falls down, and here are some suggestions for how you can make this documentation better. It's basically like a little agent that can sort of help you get along. Now, I think that kind of stuff is super powerful, and then if you keep training it, you should just be able to hit a button and go, make my documentation better.
Yeah. No, hate it. Hate it. No, I do. I understand what you're saying. I believe
Fine.
that there are some opportunities in that. I concede that what you're saying is useful, but I think at the moment we are not ready. And this, to be fair, links to like broader concerns and biases I have about large language models anyway. Like I just think I
Yeah.
feel like we're in a real hype cycle, and we're in a real run before you can walk territory, and we don't really understand the consequences of what we're doing right now.
Oh,
And I
100%.
have
I
my own
agree with you there.
specific sphere of concern relating to design systems documentation. And obviously it gets my back up. It's my job to write documentation. And
Yeah.
probably some of the documentation that I've written, because I've written documentation for some quite prestigious design systems, don't know if you know, is being used as source material. I'm not getting any attribution for that. I'm not getting any payment for that.
Actually, that
There's
is,
all
yeah,
of it
that
just
is true.
feels a bit shit to
It is.
me.
I mean, there are definitely some big like ethical, moral issues that we need to
Big
get around. We're
ethical
even
moral
finding it. So
issues.
we're just about to launch. I don't know if you heard, Amy. We're just about to launch our first AI feature, which is basically just it's around generating documentation to give you a start. Um, and even just in doing that, like we've had to make sure that you are automatically opted out of
Yeah.
that, just because it is something that is so touchy. We've talked to so many people that have been so touchy about it that and understandably, because there are still a lot of concerns around how it works, and I think that those are definitely things that we need to iron out. But I don't know, I do think a little bit like I do think everybody should be looking at ways that they can use AI to make their lives easier, because if you don't, you're just going to get surpassed by somebody who does.
Maybe.
Yeah, anyway,
I
okay,
think, can I just
go
insert a
for it.
little thing here? I have this theory, this burgeoning theory, that all design system teams need and always contain people who act as accelerators and people who act as brakes. And for context, I've always
Yes.
been a brakes gal myself. And I think you are more of an accelerator, and both are
Yeah.
necessary. I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've definitely had a
What
let's
would
see
we
if I
call
can
that for
make
the
this nice.
US people? The gas. Luke is the gas,
Yeah.
and I am the brakes.
I'm definitely more of the screw it, ship it mindset of things.
Fuck around and find out.
Yeah,
Oh, we
exactly.
can't. Can
Oh
we
no.
swear?
No, we're not in this podcast, but
Move
that's
fast
okay.
and break things.
I'm sure people are fine. Nobody's oh no, yeah, 5 people just dropped off. We're gonna go for one. We
Really?
are 3 minutes over already.
Oh,
So we're gonna go for one last nice non-design systems question to finish it off. Of course, we haven't had enough time because that's the standard with this podcast.
I actually thought we were going till 5:45, so I was gonna chat all day.
I mean, if
Sorry,
everybody wants
everyone.
to stick around for an hour, that'd be
Yeah.
great. What is your best way to take a break in this lovely holiday period where we're all going to be taking breaks, right?
Not really. I'm not really taking any time off. Apart from Christmas Day and New Year's Day and Boxing Day. But to take a break,
Is it
Go out.
just sitting on the sofa and vaping constantly?
Yeah, well, no, that's just what I do when I'm
Oh,
working.
okay.
Go outside and get away from your computer and get away from the internet and just look at some nature and breathe in some fresh air and
Oh,
add a Lost Mary into that if you so desire.
other vape brands are available. Um,
Yes, they are.
see, I'm very much a I don't know. This might feel like it's TMI, but hot bath, bubbles, and a book,
I really wonder what you were
candle.
going to say.
I
That's
know.
not TMI at all. That's
I
fine.
don't know. It's just
We're all
anything
thinking
where I
about
have
Luke in the
to.
bath now, aren't
Exactly,
we?
that's it. But yeah, hot bath,
Yeah.
bubbles, book, candle. That's maybe even some lo-fi on in the background.
Go for a walk and then do that.
Yeah,
That sounds
exactly.
like a delightful day.
That's
That's
definitely my way to
definitely do
break.
that. Yeah.
And then go out and see some punk gigs and
And
slam
scream
into other
into the
people.
void at some
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
Just scream. Scream. Get in your car and drive and scream. I like to
Just
do that.
screaming into the void is
Yeah.
always recommended. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank
That's
you.
it for today. Thank you very much to Amy for joining.
Thank you for having me.
It's I'm hoping we could do this again, actually.
I hope so. It's been so much fun,
I
hasn't
know.
it?
Yeah, I
I feel
think we
like
could
I've
do this
actually
for a
brought a
full
lot of
hour.
energy today for once.
Oh, I know this is weird. I'm not used to this.
I know.
If you have any other questions or you want to fire them across to us for the next episode of Design Systems WTF, which will be happening on the 3rd of January, 4th of January, 5th of January. It's in January. I definitely know that. Please send them through.
Seamless.
Send them through to us either via the Zero Slack community, which you can find at zeroheight.com/Slack, or on X at zeroheight. Or you can email us as well, community@zeroheight.com. Until then, see you next time.